when I look back at that kid, I just wish he could see me now because he would go, "What?"
You look super festive and summery wherever you are. It must be warm and humid like it is here in Michigan.
Thanks. It's actually so I'm in Oklahoma City right now, and it has been so dreadfully cloudy the past few days. But finally, there's some sun coming out. So, but yeah, I live basically in a greenhouse in my home. I have way too many plants.
Yeah, yeah, all your plant kids, your plant children.
Exactly.
I feel
Yes.
like that's a requisite if you're going to be a gay man or a queer person. We live with our plants.
I know it's too hard to have a kid, so you just end up buying a bunch of plants.
We've learned from all of our straight friends that it's easier when you actually just have plants to water.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, how are you? I mean, I feel like that sun metaphor. I feel like what you just said about the sun coming out is a metaphor for life. I feel
For
like
the
after
world right
this,
now, right? Yes.
yeah. How have you been doing? How has this last year been? Are you in reflection mode yet, or is it too soon to sort of reflect on what has happened to you in the last year?
Yeah. Well, currently, I'm very, very excited. We just launched our tour this week, which will be me touring off of my upcoming record, Trophies. And, it feels just so exciting to, sort of be getting back to life as usual. But as with everyone, the pandemic year was hard. It was difficult sort of adjusting to a new normal and to being sort of isolated, kind of stuck in one place for a long time, especially for me. In 2019 I did like 118 shows, and so to be in one place for over a year was very interesting. But I'm just so excited to see the fans again out onto the road, and to get back to doing what I love, which is performing live and being able to share that connection with the people that come to my shows.
I feel like this tour is going to give you a real opportunity to break loose. And I think
Very much so.
yeah, I think in many ways. I mean, I will say, I mean, like this feels a bit like a sort of sexual awakening for you. I mean, at least musically. I mean, this is like you just like putting it all out there. You're out. You're like, I am a sexual being. You're really like bringing that to the people, and so I really appreciate that.
Thanks, thanks. Well, and full disclosure and full honesty, this as I'm a songwriter, right? So I write all my own music, and this record for me coming up was, it covers a lot of different topics, and that definitely being sort of one of them. And I wanted to sort of show this other side of myself to the world, and to just have fun with it, right? Hellboy is a record that for me I think is a lot about just sort of unleashing your sort of like inner beast within yourself, and kind of that badass side of yourself. And so after a year of the pandemic, it was something, or it was a record that really sort of helped me find my confidence again.
What has it been like to sort of live out your sexuality in your music? Just period. I mean, you were making music, I think, before you were out.
Yeah.
You've been out now for several years. What is it like to sort of tap into that openness and that vulnerability and that authenticity in a maybe a different way?
Well, I think, for me, it just finally felt like such a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And it just felt like such a type of moment, right? Where, after I came out, it was, now being able to sort of walk freely around in the industry and as an artist, and to be known for who I truly was so important to me. But what's funny is everyone asks, how did the songwriting change after you came out? And to be completely honest, it really didn't. I sort of grew up and learned from songwriters that were, always so open about this message of, hey, the best music is honest, it's authentic, right? So whether or not I was using, certain pronouns in my music, when I was writing, I think I was always sort of channeling that vulnerability. And for me now, I don't even, when I'm in the studio and I'm writing, it's so uh the thought of, okay, let me, really make sure that this is correct or this is right, or all of that is so far from me. I'm just focused on trying to tell the story of that, current song. And at this point now too, it's like I couldn't not be honest. It's just for me, I'm just telling my story as it comes.
Yeah. I know I want to talk more about the music. I also want to go back a bit because I got really excited and just wanted to sort of dive into trophies. But I also want to sort of reflect a little bit on some things that maybe you felt in the last year um, during the pandemic. But what was maybe something that happened to you during the pandemic that you least expected to happen to you?
Well, I think the first thing was, falling in love. I actually met my boyfriend during the pandemic, and a lot of that I talk about on trophies. But these, remembering these first sort of touches of romance and sort of how you can feel in those first relationships, and then also, another thing that I talked about on the record was having that fear of losing love, right? That was something that I think was really sort of pertinent in my mind as our relationship was deepening and growing, of this fear of, oh my gosh, if I'm not a good guy, he's gonna jet. And so let me, how can I be the best partner? And I wrote a lot of that. But in the pandemic, I think the one thing that surprised me the most was just how much I needed. I'd like to think that I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm like, oh, I like a quiet night by myself. But after, not having any ability to go out and to be around people, you start to realize that we need that as human beings, right? And especially in the queer community where, most of our interactions, with our peers happen in those venues and they happen in those clubs and in those bars. And so not being able to tap into that was hard. It was so challenging. It was very demanding on my mental health, as it was for so many people. And so I think that was a surprise to me, that I realized, oh, actually, I do love going out to the club probably a little bit more than I want to care to admit or thought.
You and Ben are a really handsome couple. Congratulations
Oh my gosh, thank you.
on that. Yeah, and I mean, it says a lot when two people can fall in love during one of the most historically difficult times in our lifetime.
Yes, very, very much so.
Yeah. I also liked that. I think it was in relationship to a post that you made with Ben, but there was a photo. I think it was of you two, and somebody wrote something. It was a homophobic remark, and your clapback was a classic. You don't seem to be standing for any homophobia on your social media pages these days.
I well, that especially too, yeah. But what I also want to show, kind of my fans and people that follow my pages is, it's past the time that we just sort of put our tail between our legs and say, oh yeah, we'll just accept this, and some people are who they are, and whatever. I don't like that messaging. I think hate is hate no matter how you cut it. And discrimination is discrimination no matter how you cut it. And so for me, I just want to show people that, like, no, I'm not going to stand for that anymore. I'm not going to stand for sitting back and saying, well, they just have a difference of opinion, it's okay. No, we're past that moment in time. And I mean, my God, can you imagine being homophobic in 2021? What a sad life. It lacks so much color. I'm guessing these people aren't listening to Chromatica. What a just horrible way to live your life. So of course I'm gonna tell them what I think.
Yeah, please tell me there's a remix in the works of one of those songs on Chromatica with you as a guest on it.
There's there is not, but there are. I know a lot of things in the works that I'm very excited to hear that she's gonna do.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You have insider information. I'm guessing you still stay in touch.
We do, and she, has always been someone who has always kept her door open to me, which I really, really appreciate. And yeah, it's crazy to think that we've known each other now for 10 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the photos of you and the video of you when you were 12, when you sang Lady Gaga's Paparazzi on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And it is hard to believe it's been a decade. Maybe it's even harder to believe for you. How do you reflect on that big breakout moment on Ellen's show?
Oh, it's so interesting, and the biggest thing looking back for me is just when I look back at that period of my life, it is so blurry, right? Because it all happened so quickly. I had never even flown on a plane before. My first plane ride was, flying from Oklahoma City to Los Angeles to be on the show. And, to now think about where I've come, 11 years later, it invokes a lot of emotions. It's very sort of crazy, but I think for me, it's, being an artist in this industry is tough. It's really, really hard. There are many moments, post that big breakout where, I wanted to give up. And there were some moments where I did and said, I'm done with music for a minute. And it is such a tough road and it's such a tough journey to be an artist, especially in 2021. And so what I, like to express to people and what I like to show is that at this point in my career, I only do things that I'm passionate about, and I stick up for myself, and that's how I've gotten to be here now. And I'm constantly relearning those things and those skills. But when I look back at that kid, I just wish he could see me now because he would go, "What? What made it this long?" I mean, like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely insane.
I've heard you say that you are still questioning the fashion choices you made when you went on that show at that age. If you could dress yourself now, like retroactively, what would you dress that kid in?
More black, less stripes. It's funny. It's like looking back. I'm sure like it's the same thing when my mom looks back at pictures of her in the '80s. That's what it feels like to me. But I look back at it and I'm like, how was I wearing Hollister on national TV? But I was, and it's very interesting. So yeah, I would have changed some things around if I had a choice.
That hair, I mean, you could call it a mane. It was like the Justin Bieber
Was a main, yes, very much so.
mane. I guess we're never going back to that again, are we?
And thank God we aren't. Yeah, I'm content.
I'm curious to know with the songs on trophies, the ones that you were referring to earlier that I guess Ben sort of had some influence on.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh Violet is probably one of my favorite songs from the record, and sonically, I'm a huge Fleetwood Mac fan. I grew up listening to them. My parents always were playing those records on vinyl and stuff, and I wanted to make something that was kind of a tribute to them. And so that was sort of, yeah, that's my tribute to Stevie Nicks and to the whole Fleetwood Mac crew if I have one. But the song is very much so about just settling into love and really sort of finding it again and learning that it's a full spectrum beast. It's not just the great moments. It's the bad ones too and everything in between. And so in that record, I talk about the line is "I'm mad like crimson, you're sweet like blue," and so we've kind of found this in between space. And so it's a very romantic song, but I think it's fun and I think it's something that the fans will really enjoy as well.
Do you have a rule book for navigating your relationship or any relationship in a public environment?
We're writing our rule book as we go. I have to remind myself because I'm like, okay, don't be too cringy online. Like there's always that. And then I remember when I was single and I would see some of my friends or other artists that I had and they would post pictures with their partners. I remember just being like, oh my God, I'm gonna unfollow these people. I mean, they're so happy all the time. It's just, ugh, it's disgusting. So I think about that sometimes. But most people know this about me. I like to stay as private as possible. I like to show parts of my life that I think are fun and that are good. But for the most of the time, I'm sort of secluded in my house, cooking pasta, watching true crime documentaries, and writing music. That's kind of what I do. And so I leave that out on my Instagram story a lot because it's kind of just rinse and repeat.
I mean, but I don't know. Fans also eat those little intimate moments up. Like they would love to know if you're like a chickpea pasta kind of person or just like a whole wheat pasta person. People want to know these details.
Okay, maybe you're right. Fine. I'll start a cooking show. It's fine.
That's all. That's all I'm asking for is for you to launch a cooking show in the middle of a tour.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll find some time.
How excited are you to actually hit the road? I mean, after sort of just being sequestered for the last year, what is going through your mind?
It's a mixed emotion, if I'm being honest. I'm particularly very nervous. It's kind of, like getting back on a bike again, but I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, do I even know how to perform? Like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. But I think there will, I feel like the first few shows back, it will be just so emotional, and to really, again, too, to celebrate um being back in venues and being playing again. But I also want to let anybody know coming to my show, we are still very much so operating in a safe manner. I'm encouraging my fans to wear masks at the show if they would like. And, we're also, please get your shot, get vaccinated. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it. It's a safe thing to do. I got my two. And so, we're going to have as much fun as possible, but also, be smart and be as safe as we can too.
Yeah, well said. Do you have you stepped on a stage yet?
I've not, or there've been random moments here and there, but in a serious way, no. And I think that will be a tearful afternoon where it will just, I think, feel like a lot of joy.
Yeah, I bet. You're from Oklahoma, and so I assume opening the tour at Oklahoma City's Pride Festival is going to be really special for you. Why was it important for you to launch there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was born and raised here, and obviously, was born and raised here as a gay person, as a person in the queer community. And Oklahoma City, for really the first time, kind of in its history, is not only having a pride, but having this big of a moment. This is something that the city is getting very behind, and that they're really, pumping a lot of energy into. Um, and what I want to, show to the people that are going to be at that show is to show and commend the progress that, this place has made and that this city has made. Because we didn't have things like this when I was younger, and trying to sort of navigate my sexuality. And so it's going to be such a triumphant moment, I think, and also to return, back to playing live in my hometown for Pride. It's going to cover a whole range of emotions.
Yeah, I don't think I think of Oklahoma as being as progressive as you're telling me it is, and maybe that's true for a lot of people. Um, but what was it like for you growing up in Oklahoma at a time when, they were even less progressive?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's sort of a misconception, I think, about it here, which is, it commonly kind of gets lumped together in the South. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have its issues and its problems, but, what I sort of relate my experience to is, I think I grew up in the suburbs. And no matter where you are in the United States, whether it be New York, California, when you're in the suburbs, you're in the suburbs. And it's difficult for any, person who's just a little bit outside of the box of normalcy, right? If you don't fit into this demographic. And so the way that I best describe it is, it was difficult. It was hard. I don't think it was any more or less difficult than what kids go through all across America and all across the world. But it was, you're an outsider. Don't be a part of that. Stay in line, follow the rules, and knowing that you can't live your life like that, it's difficult. You doubt yourself. You sink into long bouts of depression. It's hard to know who your true friends are. It's hard to know who your friends are going to be after you come out. And so it's an emotional roller coaster. And we all hope, as we look to the next generation of queer youth, it's that we want to make a life that's going to be a lot better for them, a world and a society that's going to be better for them. And so, as an artist, what I think my role is to create a space at my concert where I know anyone who feels like an outsider can come and finally fit in, can finally be there, and really express themselves and be true to themselves. And so, that's what I think my job is, as an artist, and especially as a queer artist.
I think that's beautiful, and I think it's also beautiful that a fan is the person who actually sort of led you out of the closet, at least publicly, right? And now here you are, um, influencing. I can only imagine thousands and thousands of LGBTQ plus youth. What kind of messages do you hear from them?
A lot of it, and it's crazy for me to hear sometimes because I have artists that I know were so influential in helping me, step out of the closet. And when I hear that I'm that person for somebody, it throws me for a loop. I don't even know what to think about it. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not that important. Don't put that on me. But I have to remind myself that I am, for a lot of my fans, and to know that there is, that sort of positivity or that sort of influence on an individual, like it makes all of the other stuff that I have to deal with on my day to day that's maybe a little more annoying, a little more, nitty gritty. It makes it all worth it. Because if I know that I can at least have one positive influence over somebody and to help them in their journey, then that's why I'm here. That's such a blessing, and that's a good purpose in life. And so it makes me feel very fulfilled when I hear that.
I want to go back to trophies for a couple minutes and ask you if you wrote that and recorded that during the pandemic.
Yeah, all of it was, and this body of work too, especially had many iterations. Um, 2020 was a year in which I felt a significant amount of imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of that came from not being able to play live. I all of a sudden really didn't know my purpose anymore. I didn't know what I was really supposed to do. I was told by everybody to say, get on social media more and, make yourself available, make yourself present. And all I wanted to do was just sink into myself because I didn't really know how who I was, how I'd gotten here, and all of those things. I felt such a lack of purpose, and so I kept on writing through it. And to be honest with you, a lot of the music was really bad for a second. And you have to go through that. You have to let yourself sort of um, be bad sometimes, and to just kind of accept it. And then all of a sudden, I think once I let go of this pressure over myself of, okay, you have to have the best record, you have to make sure it's going to work at radio and make sure all of these things, that's when the record really came about. And once that happened, it was quick. It was a matter of a month, and then we had it together. And it's something, yeah, I'm very proud of it. I think a lot of people look at it and say, why is it so short? It's 8 songs for a reason. It's 8 songs that I feel very confident about and that I really love and cherish. And I think those 8 songs do a good job of telling the story of the record, which is, me as a songwriter. It's, if you want to know what has been happening to me the past 365 days, play that thing top to bottom. It's all there.
This is your pandemic memoir.
Exactly.
I want to know what constitutes a bad Grayson Chance song and if that's going to be a B-side release.
We don't have. There are a lot of bad Grayson Chance songs out there, and thank goodness that there are a lot of them that are unreleased. There are also a lot of them that are on Spotify and Apple Music, and I have to live with that.
Oh no. Wait, take me back to the ones that you can't stand to listen to or sing anymore.
I think it is incredibly amazing that "Unfriend You," which is a song I did when I was 14, has had such a random resurgence and or resurgence back in 2020 and 2021, and I do blame TikTok for that. But I will never listen to that song. The only good thing about that song was Ariana Grande being in the music video, and she was absolutely stunning, and I love her so much. And that's about the only good thing I have to say about Unfriend You.
Oh, I love that. We're about to launch into Pride season, as you know. I think it's going to be a longer Pride season than usual, even because some prides can't actually physically happen in June, so they're being pushed back into later in the summer and early fall. Anyways, I want to know what Pride means to you and what you're doing for Pride, aside from being on the road every day for the summer.
Um, I think this one is going to be extra special because, as I mentioned, the pandemic was not only hard for everybody, but I think it was especially hard for the queer community because our places of where we're truly able to go and sort of let our hair down and really be ourselves are in areas and places where we weren't allowed to go during the pandemic. So I think this one is going to be such a celebration of life, of progress, of knowing that, especially in America, we made it through 4 years of a very tough presidency. And it shows you that, the common good is still very, very strong and very alive. And so it's going to be a monumental Pride this year. And again, my job as an artist is to make sure I can put on a really, really good show for everybody in the audience for Pride.
Well, I have really enjoyed talking to you. Very nice to virtually meet you. One day we'll meet in person. And thanks for taking the time today to have a chat, okay?
Of course, of course. Thank you so much, Chris. All right. And stay safe, and we'll see you in Detroit.
You too. All right. See you. Bye, Grayson.